So we're trying to look at Blake Wesley and his potential meter for the San Antonio Spurs future. When I did my roster analysis video, a lot of people had a lot of concerns about Blake Wesley and didn't see eye to eye with me in terms of why I'm excited about him and why I liked what I saw. And why the main reason why people were concerned is because they stat sheet and they would pull out that 3 point percentage number and say, man, he shoots 22%. Oh my God, that's terrible. That's got to be one of the worst in the NBA. And they start fixating on this stat. And it does Blake Wesley a huge disservice, right? Because if we're looking here on this second half of the season, that's kind of what I highlighted here for us. Yeah, he didn't shoot the ball from 3 point line all that well, but he only averaged about 1 3 per game. In these last 54 games, he had 18 games where he did not even shoot a three. He had 22 games where he only put up 1 3 pointer. And then, so he's not letting them fly. His role was not to shoot the three. Now, I would argue that, his three ball looks a little funky, but somehow it goes in, so there's something there to it. I just don't believe that it's fair to assess Blake Wesley just fixating on his stat line, because with him, the stats are not that bad when you look at his 15-minute sample, what he's able to do with the assist to turnover ratio, the points that he is putting up per game, the way he's able to get the half a steal, per game and all that. Like, he's really getting after it, and those stats kind of show, but you really have to kind of see the whole picture when it comes to Blake Wesley when you're evaluating him from from either his first to his second year, or from his second year to maybe what we can hope to see from him moving forward. Now, that's the main reason why I'm not worried about the three ball. Now, if I can now I will go on and tell you now why I am excited about Blake Wesley, and that's because he's already shown growth. He's already shown a lot of growth in this second year than maybe some of the previous draft picks that we've made haven't been able to do from year even 3 or 4 beyond that. And not to dog any of these guys or to diss any of these guys, but like Lonnie Walker really couldn't improve. We saw that potential early, but he couldn't improve enough to get on the floor. Guys like Luka Samanic, Josh Primo, Joe Wieskamp, all these guys, these previous draft picks that we've had, young draft picks, rookies, right? Like young players, freshmen out of college, they weren't really able to get it done enough to get on the floor all that much. And so what's very impressive about him, another thing, is that he has been able to earn his way onto the floor with his defense. And that's a lot of trust coming from the coaches. And that tells you that he's coachable. One, he has an IQ there. That's two. His defensive measurements and physical attributes with his long wingspan kind of lend you to believe that he can guard, like in a 3 or 4 version of Blake down the road, that he should be able to guard 1 through 3. No problem. It's really hard for me to find holes in his game aside from that 3 point percentage number, which just is clearly just kind of misleading to the untrained eye. You really have to see him play. And so what gets me excited is his defensive ability combined with this massive ability to learn, right? He's learning on the fly. Everyone's learning how to play with Wemby. It took everybody a long time to play with Wemby. It was seemingly easy for him to come in and play with Wembenyama and throw the lob to him, get him some buckets and get him going, so the IQ is there. The way he's able to adapt. I talked about it. Brian Wright mentioned it in his rookie interview that they see him playing a little bit of a point guard, but he was more of an off guard in college. And I think that his adaptability and ability to learn that position on the fly really quick, really only spending a year and a half in Austin, and he was really able to kind of go ahead and come into the main club and not make mistakes. That's so much trust that I don't think a lot of these previous guys that I mentioned earlier were really able to grasp from the coaching staff. He was able to stay aggressive in the middle of all of that. So that's why I can really see like the Spurs thinking ahead on Wesley and really banking on him in the future, actually, like to let him develop. I would assume it's safe to assume that in the growth that we've just seen so far, it's like you want to see Blake Wesley in year 4, so you pick up his option one, and then you maybe even get him an offer sheet beyond that, depending on how that turns out, and seeing if his shot kind of does get a little bit better along the way. But that's why, like, I'm buying all this stock in Wesley's because offensively, I don't really have many issues with him, and defensively, he's earned something. And when you earn something from the Spurs through the defensive path, I mean the potential there goes up through the roof because we know that we can work with developing his offensive game. Um, but and speaking of his offensive game, what does that need to be? I think he did a great job of this year just letting it come to him and letting him figure out, okay, what does this team need me to do? Because like I highlighted before, like there's not too many shots left over to take past Devin Vassell and Wembenyama. He's gonna have to go and into games, and sometimes he's going to have to be able to hit wide open threes, and sometimes he's just really going to be facilitating on the floor and just getting after it on defense. I think just like anyone else in the league, yes, he will have to have a catch and shoot 3-pointer that's consistent, that keeps the defense honest. But if that's really all that's necessary from him, everything that comes offensively from him that he's able to give us is just going to be it's going to be a bonus. It's going to be extra. Even with that second group out there, if he's primarily with that second group, is that there's already a lot of mouths to feed in that second unit. So it's not like he's going to come in here and just start, off the dribble, taking threes. That's not Blake Wesley's game right now. Now, can it be in the future? Sure, why not? So I guess that kind of leads to the question, okay, well, what is his long-term potential? Can he be a starter, or is he always going to be coming off the bench? Well, that's kind of a difficult question to ask. I think the Spurs, if they wanted to insert him in the starting lineup, he would have to maybe beat out someone like Julian Champagny at the moment, because he's who is a much more reliable 3-point shooter, and does space the floor for that starting unit. Um, or the next thing is, well, can Blake Wesley ever be good enough to replace Trey Jones, and kind of move up that hierarchy in the point guard position? And I would say that's kind of like highly unlikely at this point. I think that, like, it would have to come down to like a real battle between these guys in training camp, in the start of next season, or after that, in order for him to kind of take Trey's spot, because you know Trey Jones is going into a contract year, and I think that the Spurs like what they saw out of Trey at the end of last season. So unless there's someone that they bring in either via the draft or via free agency who's just hands down better than Trey Jones, I don't really see the Spurs, benching Trey for Blake Wesley. Now, the Spurs also like to keep their point guard situations kind of solid all year, but all it would take is Trey Jones to get a minor injury or something like that, miss some time, and then maybe we do get to see Blake Wesley kind of take that starting role. So, we'll see. Anything is possible, but I'm completely all in on keeping and buying more Blake Wesley stock, because his potential for me still remains high. I can start to kind of see the idea of what Blake can be, maybe like a fourth or fifth year Blake Wesley with 10 or 15 more pounds of muscle. He's got a great wingspan on him. He can really defend the 1 through the 3. I think as he gets stronger, he'll be able to do more defensively. And what we're seeing offensively is poise. We didn't see him turn over the ball that much. He makes great decisions, and he can kind of put the ball in the hole when he needs to at some time. So a lot of growth. There's just so much growth there, and I think you can bank on that growth continuing from year 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5. And I think by the time you get to that fourth or fifth year, I think we can see Wesley kind of looking like a Josh Hart slash Drew Holiday type player, who's kind of like not a point guard, but not really a shooter either. They kind of just are really smart defenders. They know the game. They can get after it, and they're strong. They're there to guard. and they're there to make plays on offense and not be a liability on offense either. Those other two players, Josh Hart just had a big shot in the last series when they were sagging off of him. I think that those two guys are a pretty good comp right now for Blake Wesley. So, I'm excited to see him develop, and I'm excited to see what the Spurs' plans are for him moving into next season. If that's just staying on the bench, but maybe having a more solid role from the get-go, and maybe 15 instead of 15 minutes to 10 to 15, it's more 15 to 20. And then we'll just see how the opportunities come his way. So let me know in the comments below, and I appreciate you guys for watching and supporting the channel. Go Spurs, go.